Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Uncover Unconscious Beliefs and How to Create the New Ones. My name is Dr. Patricia Crane, and as many of you who've signed up for this webinar know and are on our list, I was able to train personally with Louise Hay, which was a great privilege. And long story short, there's YouTube videos on that. It evolved into a worldwide training program. And certainly Louise's work is just amazing in terms of uncovering those unconscious beliefs that have been limiting you and changing them. So now I'll introduce my partner in life, love, and everything, Rick Nichols.
Hello, everybody. I'm Patricia's partner in love, life, marriage, and all things wonderful, including business and doing everything we can to extend more love into the world by helping people understand better who they are and what is driving them behind the scenes there. And I will be right here by her side through the whole thing, albeit electronically by her side. She is in a different room upstairs, and I'm in my studio downstairs, but we find that works out pretty well for us. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. And yes, we have tried like being in the same place, but the way our offices are set up, it's a little crunchy. So this makes it easier. I always like to start with something from Louise Hay, and this is from her book, Meditations to Heal Your Life. And this is all about the mind, which we're talking about today. She says, I program my mind with loving messages. My mind is a storehouse of information. It records everything I think and say. If I put negative in, then I get negative out. When I put positive in, I get positive out. Therefore, I consciously choose to feed it positive, loving, and uplifting messages that produce beneficial results in my life. I now release any thought, idea, or belief that has limited me. I reprogram my mind with new thoughts and beliefs that recreate the most wonderful, prosperous, joyous events in my life. So, isn't that inspiring? And of course, so much of what Louise works with is affirmations and really reprogramming your mind. But it's also very much about the heart. And as Rick was saying, we teach people and spread her loving philosophy to learn how to love yourself and love your life and love others more fully. So we are talking about unconscious beliefs. And what I would like to start out with is just a little bit about what they are. You may already know, you may have already even discovered some. And if you've already discovered some, you can actually use the reactions down below and just raise your hand and show us that, or put in the chat that you have. But the unconscious beliefs have developed primarily in childhood from things that either people said to you, what you witnessed, your experiences. We often talk about the parents and their role in that, but really, you have teachers, you have other institutions like churches, even other kids. Like, for example, if you were bullied as a child by other kids, you may grow up feeling like, hey, if I'm visible, I better not be speaking up. And that creates fear in you for speaking up in your adult life. So there's so much in the unconscious, and I'm sure you've seen and heard the example of the iceberg. There's so much under the surface. And so today, when we want to give you some examples of how we discovered some unconscious beliefs, what some of our clients did, and also more techniques for how you can uncover those for yourself and then transform your life more fully. So I'm going to let Rick talk about unconscious beliefs as well. So Rick, whatever you would like to share, please.
Well, I like to refer to them as transparent belief systems. And the reason I call them that is, we know they're unconscious, but they are there, but we can't see them. It's kind of like the patio door, all clean and shiny and everything, and you're at a party, people going back and forth outside, inside. So you go inside, you get a plate of food, and you turn around and you're ready to go back outside, and somebody has closed the sliding glass door. It's there, it's very definitely there, but you can't see it. So when you try to go through it, wham, you bang your head on a thing, you drop your food on the floor, you're very embarrassed, and it creates an unpleasant situation for everybody concerned. And that is the way that transparent belief systems work. They are the glass door that gets closed and you run into them, and they can definitely affect the way that you see the world and the way that you behave in the world until you uncover them and realize that that they are there. And we will go into a little bit about how to uncover them, and then every bit as importantly, how to eradicate them or how to remove them in your thinking, because those unconscious beliefs are what's driving your life. You can be sure of that.
Absolutely.
You're not even aware of it.
Absolutely. And so the big question is then, if they're unconscious, how do you just, find them? How do you uncover them? And the first part is really pretty simple, but it's something that very few people do consciously. And that is, you pay attention to your life. What's going on in your reality at this point around prosperity, loving yourself, health, career, etc., that you're unhappy with, or even happy with. If you're happy with them, there's some great beliefs that you've developed there. But what are the ones that you're not very happy with, or you keep having the same pattern over and over again and thinking, why do I keep recreating that? And so you pay attention to your thoughts, your feelings, and your experiences and what you're recreating over and over again out in your life. And some of those can be very obvious pretty quickly. I'm going to tell you one for me that wasn't for several decades, actually. But you can also, from a very simple event, learn some very profound things about what is going on within your unconscious mind. And Rick has a very powerful story about that. So I'm going to turn it back over to him.
Okay, thank you. Well, I've had several encounters with unconscious belief systems, or transparent belief systems, as I like to refer to them. And one of them was, well, first I have to kind of preface this with I don't usually have much use for the past, and I don't go there very often, because one of the things you learn going through this work is you lose your stories, the old stories that you've been telling yourself, most of which are telling you and reminding you there's something not quite right about you from the get-go. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I've experienced a lot of that. But just to give you a foundation for this, I was raised in a very dysfunctional family. The parents were alcoholics, and there were 6 children in this, and we just had to make do for ourselves. And there was an abusive stepfather. It's kind of like the old fairy tales, so that was what shaped my life in the earlier days, was this really awkward kind of view of things. And when you grow up in an environment like that, you begin to think that it's normal, that it is the way the rest of the world works as well. Even though somewhere in your mind, that isn't true. But what you gain and what you learn in that will shape your following days. And so these transparent belief systems have been being set down in there. And here's where one uncovered for me, and it was quite profound. I was going through a kind of a transformational period of my life where I was looking for something more in life. Life it's okay. I mean, I was living hand to mouth, had a job, had a business, small business. I'm the only person in the business, and it was cleaning swimming pools. But it occurred to me that there must be something more about life than just getting up, going to work, going home, go to bed, back and forth. So I went through quite a long period. It took me 3 years to try to recover from all of that and to find myself. Because what I discovered, what I was really looking for was, who am I? What is myself? And it wasn't what I thought it was. So anyway, one of the things that happened during that period is I'm walking down the beach in Huntington Beach, which is where I lived. And it was getting late in the afternoon, and the sun was kind of low in the sky there. And I was kind of squinting, and there was a man walking towards me on the beach. And when he got right beside me, he stopped and he looked at me and he said, "Hey." And I said, "Yeah, what?" He said, "Are you from Huntington Beach?" I said, "Well, yes." He said, "Oh, good. You need a hat." He was wearing a baseball cap that said Huntington Beach, Surf City, USA. And he took it off of his head, and he plopped it down on my head. Boom. Immediately I went to rage. I was absolutely offended by this random act of kindness. He gave me a very nice hat. but for some reason it infuriated me. So I said, well, thanks. I walked on, and as soon as I could get a few steps away, I took it off. And I'm thinking, well, what is that about? And that's when you begin to discover the unconscious beliefs or the transparent beliefs. What caused me to behave like that, to behave in a way that isn't really appropriate for the situation? A nice thank you would have been appropriate rather than just turning and walking away from the man. And I couldn't come up with an answer. Well, after about 3 or 4 days, I was drifting off to sleep one evening, and it came to my memory a time in school when there came a epidemic of ringworm and head lice, and they sent flyers home to the children, to the parents, saying, "Tell your children not to wear anybody else's hat or use their brush or comb because it spreads the disease." Now, mom was a single mom, even back in those days, is even rougher then. So she told us, made it clear to us, you do not use somebody else's brush or comb, or certainly don't wear their hats. Because if you come home with that disease, it is not going to go well for you. So that set down and locked in a solid unconscious belief system that hats will give you diseases. That somebody else's hat on your head is very dangerous. And there it sat, just cooking away all these years, and I never paid any attention to it, but it caused me to act very inappropriately to a situation about that. And once I learned about it, I thought, wow, that's really, I mean, I'd heard about unconscious belief systems and transparent belief systems and all manner of things, but I'd never come that I was aware of face to face with one. Now, that's pretty benign. It doesn't matter if I ever wear somebody else's hat at all. But here's what it did. It uncovered some things because I said, well, if there's that transparent belief that has such a strong impact on me, I wonder what else is there. So I began to search them out. And I sorted out the way that I was raised. I learned very, very erroneous ways of life. I learned from my environment that women weren't to be respected, that men weren't to be trusted, that children had no value, and I could go on and on and on with the kinds of things I uncovered. So that's when I said, I've got to find a way to find out what the real life is about, what really is the truth about life. And so I kind of peeled them away one at a time, and it began to just let the light come in more and more and more once I began to see that the world is not the way I believed it to be.
Thank you. That's such a powerful story because it just really demonstrates so clearly how these unconscious beliefs develop and how you can really pay attention to your life to change them. And of course, in the Heal Your Life work and the trainings and all the other workshops, etc., we do a lot to uncover those unconscious beliefs so that you really can move forward and achieve what you want in your life. Now, in contrast to Rick, I actually grew up in a very nice environment overall, kind of a normal, quote unquote, if there is such a thing, middle class upbringing. And I received a lot of positive messages. But along with those were some expectations of me. And I learned that I had to be perfect to get the approval at home. And of course, that translated into anxiety in my adult life until I began to realize, first of all, I can't be perfect and where that had come from. But also, there were some other beliefs that I uncovered along the way. And one of them, when I started Louise's work, was quite a revelation to me. And what had happened is back when I was in college, my mom used to take me out shopping, before the fall semester so that I had some new clothes, etc. And I was going to college near Chicago. So it's pretty cold there, as you might imagine. And there was a budget, but that particular day, we found a coat that was on sale. And even on sale, it was more than usual for the budget. And I can actually remember putting that coat on and just feeling it. It was this beautiful camel colored color and very warm and very cozy. Well, long story short, on the way back to college, I met some friends at the airport. We got a taxi to take us to the college, to our dorm, and I put my coat and raincoat up in the back of the taxi. When we got to the dorm, guess what happened? We unpacked our luggage and I forgot the coats. Now I panicked when we got upstairs and I called the taxi companies, and it was a yellow cab. So there was lots of those, right? Nobody had turned in a coat. Well, I was so angry at myself and feeling so guilty that I never even told my mother I lost this coat before I even wore it. And at that time, I was just thinking how stupid I was, how dumb I was for leaving that. Well, fast forward, I start doing the prosperity work and Louise's work. And what I discovered was that when I was growing up, you could have nice things, but never exactly what you wanted because it was too expensive. So I had the fake designer clothes. We had the couch that was almost nice, but not the one my mother really wanted. So I'd gone through my life up to that point, just saying, okay, well, I can't really always have what I want. And when I began to change that belief, it didn't mean that I necessarily got the most expensive thing, especially when I bought my own condo, but I bought what I wanted, what I liked. And so that was a huge revelation that this very simple thing that had happened that I blamed myself for so many years was really the result of that unconscious belief. And so you're probably already reflecting on some of the ones that you have developed and maybe are starting to get a glimmer as to why those developed for you as well. And I'm going to turn it back to Rick because he has another story about prosperity for us that he can share about uncovering another unconscious belief that he had.
Great, thank you. Well, there are many of them. We all have them. Lots of them are benign. They don't affect us too much. But what we learn growing up is usually negative stuff about ourselves because people they can't teach you something that they don't know. And when they were growing up, they were told that they had these faults, all kinds of faults. And it comes from everywhere. It comes from the church, it comes from school, it comes from your friends, it comes from other families, it comes from everywhere that remind you that you are not quite right. And they affect things. Now, here's how it can affect your idea about money. In this world, in the Western world anyway, schools don't teach children about money. They don't introduce them to money. It's all out there. So money shows up being a very scary thing because we don't understand it. We seem to never have enough of it. There's always something taking it away from us. It's just a big issue, which is one of the things that we teach when we do our training, is to build a much better relationship with money than you've had. And you would be surprised about your relationship with money and what causes it if you were to take a deep look into it. Here's just a little example of what happened to me. I had a newspaper route delivering newspapers back when I think I was 7 or 8 years old or something along those lines. Now, when I was 7 or 8 years old, that was a while back. That was in the mid 50s. And $20 was a whole lot of money then. Well, I was doing my collections and stuff and stopping my bike and going into people's houses, knocking on the doors and try to collect the money. But I pulled up to one curb and there was a $20 bill laying there in the street. $20. Now, it doesn't sound like a whole lot in today's world, but in the 1957 world, $20 would pay the rent. $20 would buy all the groceries for a couple of weeks. $20 was a lot of money. And here lays a $20 bill. There's nobody else around that could claim it. So I picked it up and continued with my business there. Ran into the house when I got home and told Mom, look what I found. I found this $20 bill. She said, oh, wonderful, wonderful. How lucky you are. She said, here, let me take care of that for you. That's a lot of money. And so I handed it to her. And I never saw or heard from it again. Actually, I did, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But the unconscious belief that planted in my mind that if I do manage to get some money, somebody or something will just take it away from me. So it can work into a system, a belief system. Why bother? Why bother? If I get some money, it'll just fly out the window. And that's what causes people to live hand to mouth. The money comes in, the money goes out. Money comes in, the money goes out. None of it ever stays because of a belief system that may have been implanted in your mind a very long time ago that says that if you get money, you're going to lose it. So why bother anyway? Now, I will have to put a caveat on that. I said that I didn't see or hear from the money again. But as I got a little older and realized the struggle my mother had as a single mom raising the children, that money did come back to me because I had food to eat and I had a roof over my head. And so it went into the family pool. It's just that I didn't see it. And probably at that age, the last thing I needed was something that would be the equivalent of a couple hundred or $300-400 today. So you learn as you grow and you grow as you learn. And life is really quite beautiful. And some of the things that we think have been unfair to us and have treated us poorly, that may be the case, but there was a reason behind it. And the trick is to discover the reason behind it and to convert it to something that is useful to you and that empowers us and encourages us to grow and share and be happy.
Thank you. And the universe will give you opportunities to uncover these beliefs. And sometimes they're not so obvious as a couple we talked about. Sometimes they're very subtle. And I'm going to share with you a story that happened when I was working with Louise in the intensives that she was doing. And each of us who were assisting, and I was also teaching with her, we had small groups that we worked with. And one of the women that was in my small groups came to me one day and said, just really on the verge of tears at that point, and said, I don't think Louise likes me. And I said, why do you think Louise doesn't like you? And she said, well, just a little while ago, she passed me in the hall and she didn't even acknowledge me. I've seen her acknowledging other people. Well, I knew from this woman being in my group that her mother's abandonment was a big issue to her. And so here's Louise, the mother of us all, who is walking by her in the hallway and doesn't acknowledge her. Well, this is how the universe cooperates with your unconscious beliefs. At that moment, Louise could have been thinking about what she was going to be teaching that afternoon or something she needed to go talk to the administration about or whatever it was that she didn't even notice this woman, but it came completely within that unconscious belief that this gal had. So what I said to her is, here's an important question. I want you to write this one down because you might already be kind of triggering and thinking about some of the stuff going on with you that really holds an unconscious belief. So I said to her and asked her this very important question. How old do you feel? How old do you feel? And she immediately looked at me with her eyes wide and said, 6. And what was happening then? And she talked to me a little more about her mom and what had happened with that and the abandonment. And so immediately we were able to connect what happened with Louise to that feeling of abandonment with her mother that she was now projecting onto Louise. And so what I said to her is I said, you need to go to Louise tomorrow morning and go up to her and say, Louise, I don't think you like me. Now that's a kind of radical thing to say and ask somebody to do. And she was a little in shock. But she said, okay. And the next morning, I walked in and she had this great smile on her face. She was sitting up in the front, next to Louise, who was actually at that point talking to someone else. But she came running over to me and gave me a big hug and said, I went up to her and said, Louise, I don't think you like me. And she said, why is it that people I think look so nice think I don't like them? And so right there was this great awareness in the pattern that had developed and the beginning of it changing. Now, it didn't mean it changed overnight. She still had some inner work to do the rest of the week we were together, but it was that great awareness. Mm-hmm. So you need to be really paying attention to your life and what's going on. And one of the important questions is, how old do I feel? Okay. Now, if there's any questions that you want to ask, you can just click on the Q&A and we will answer your questions. But, what are some of the techniques that we work with in the Heal Your Life work? Well, the first one we've already talked about really is awareness, being aware of what's going on in your life. The next one, and this one's really important, is the inner child work. because that's where all these beliefs developed and have been carried out now in your adult life. So we work with the inner child, asking that child, same question I just suggested, how do you feel? Remembering some of those incidents, whether again it's with the parents or with other teachers or other kids even, what is it that you're remembering from those? And, there are so many memories in that unconscious mind that it often takes time to uncover all of them. And it's an ongoing process. It's not something that you just, do over a weekend or whatever, but we do it ongoing in the Heal Your Life work. And what we do find in the training that we do is that people have amazing insights, even when they've been working with Louise's work 15 or 20 years and really enjoying it a lot and finding out a lot, that it just goes so much deeper that you uncover even more. And of course, another technique is affirmations. We use affirmations. And so that's something you can start working with. And one of them could be very simple, just saying, any insight I need to help me change this pattern comes to me. So you might have an incident like Rick did with the hat, or I did with the coat. You might go to sleep with a dream and wake up with a dream that tells you more about what's going on. But there are lots of ways that the universe can really answer that request for you to really uncover these old beliefs and be living your life in a whole different way. There's another question that I want to share with you, and that is, it's not one that's often talked about, but this one is, who would I betray if I became more successful in my life? Who would I betray? And I remember one of the prosperity workshops that Rick and I did, one of the people in it had done quite a bit of prosperity work already, but we did a little exercise with her and with the group about being able to discover some of these unconscious beliefs. And she had a major revelation that the reason she couldn't get past a current prosperity level is because she would be going past her parents' level, and that would be betraying them. So that's the second question you can ask is, who would I betray if I became more successful in my life? And success doesn't necessarily mean money, prosperity, or the highest job. It could be, how do I get successful in relationships? So what did you learn about relationships? And Rick, you've already talked about, the ones growing up and how difficult that was. And so you learned a lot about dysfunctional relationships, and that becomes a pattern, doesn't it? So I thought you might want to comment on that, Rick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, they become patterns, relationships, and a relationship is how you relate to anything. It isn't like just with people. It's with yourself. It's with your thoughts, with your mind, with your body. It's how you relate with nature and with everything. So it's important to know how you relate, why you relate, what is there in it for you. And clearing these unconscious ideas and so forth is very important to that process.
And in the Heal Your Life work, in our trainings and the workshops that our workshop leaders offer, etc., in the training itself, we combine the personal growth work with the professional skills training, because one of the things Louise always said is the only person you ever need to work on is yourself. And Rick and I tease sometimes about, no, I think you need to change, and you probably have thought that in a relationship as well. But what Louise meant by that was not that you never help anyone else to make a change, because obviously we're doing that. But what she meant was that when you work on yourself and learn more about yourself, you have more understanding, more compassion, and more love to help others. So the foundation begins with working on yourself. And I know today there's this, Nike's thing, just go do it. And there's a lot out there about, achievement and doing this and doing that. And doing is important. But in the Heal Your Life work, we like to set the foundation. And we haven't really talked much right now about loving yourself, but that's the foundation that Louise sets. And of course, getting rid of a lot of those unconscious beliefs makes it possible for you to love yourself more. And so the foundation is loving yourself. We also work with meditation, of course, and visualization, and some of the questions we've already talked about, as well as, the inner child work and mirror work. And some of you may be familiar with mirror work, where you're looking in your own eyes and saying, I love you. And if that's too hard at the beginning because of these old beliefs that are hanging out back there, I am willing to love you. I am willing to love you, willing to make changes. And just know that that is possible and that you are worth it. So that's another major question is, what do I deserve? That's the other question to ask yourself. What did I learn about what I deserve? And we've talked about prosperity, maybe achievement, but in your life, ask that question. What do I deserve? And what was I taught about deservability? It's really sad how many people grow up with the beliefs that life is just to be endured and not to be happy and not to be joyous. And what we want to teach is that you are worth loving and your life can be a joy, but it's just opening to all the possibilities that you have and knowing that whatever's going on in your life right now that is uncomfortable, difficult, whatever it is, that it can absolutely change.
It can, but you have to first of all discover it. You have to first of all realize that your operating system was poorly programmed early on. And not because anybody wanted to hurt you necessarily. It's again, they just programmed your operating system the way theirs was operating, the way theirs was programmed. And so you can come into that. Most people don't like themselves. Many people don't like themselves at all. Some people loathe themselves, which is a big reason, one of the reasons why the world is in so much trouble today. You come into the world thinking, I love the story of the Wizard of Oz because it shows how Dorothy, excuse me, is gone into this, what I see as a near-death experience, to discover who she really is. She finds her fears, and she finds her not smart enough, and she finds her not good enough in many ways, and begins to embrace these pieces of herself that are wounded because she was an orphan in the way she grew up, and to love them and love those pieces of herself, to turn it around and say, okay, I have some blemishes and I've had these problems, but that is no longer true of me. I know who I am. And the inner child work is very, very powerful in getting to that, because again, it's part of that complex, transparent belief system that's driving you. Here's a little poem that kind of points that out and makes it pretty poignant. It's by Derek Walcott, and it's called "Love After Love." And the poem goes like this: The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door in your own mirror, and each will smile to the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. And that's what can happen with mirror work. It takes you back into yourself, and you discover somebody in that mirror that you have forgotten about, that you may not have liked. And it is time to get reacquainted with that person so that you can both clear the issues. And I know when I was a child, I really hated myself. I was a skinny little kid with nasty pimples all over my face, with learning disabilities, an easy target for bullies. And this child was something I learned not to like. And I grew up and grew up and grew up not liking that inner child until I came to this work, working through my process of finding that something that's missing in life or had been missing, when I began to discover that I was quite a wonderful kid, and that that child, united with me, grew into a very good man doing good works in the world, who loves himself and is proud of himself and what he's doing. That's what happens when you get acquainted with your inner child, and then you take him or her and embrace it and say, you come, you sit with me, let's talk it over. We're going to make everything right.
Thank you. And when I first met Rick, I was absolutely delighted to learn that he had not only read Louise's book, he was doing the exercises, and not only that, he had memorized those affirmations that are at the beginning of each chapter. And I was really impressed with that because it wasn't something I had done. But I think you can really tell how much Rick has transformed using Louise's work, and also why I fell in love with him. Now we have a few questions here, and the first one is, can you repeat the first affirmation? And yes, I'd be happy to do that. And that is, any insight I need to transform this pattern comes to me. Any insight I need to transform this pattern comes to me. And again, that can be rereading Louise's book, re-listening to something in this recording. Maybe it'll come to you in a dream. There are all kinds of ways that things can come to you. And I always have, been really open to signs from the universe about something that's going on. And I can remember one time I was going through a whole lot of stuff, and I was driving down this one street, and this big billboard said, "This girl is out of control." And it was just so apropos for what I was feeling right then that I absolutely just started laughing uncontrollably and said, "Thank you." So another thing you can be doing is consciously be asking for and looking for things, insights and insights, and just things to come to you that will tell you what's going on. One thing I do use, and I don't have one out right now, but Louise's Power Thought cards. Those are great for looking up things and, pulling out a card to saying, okay, what can I do to transform this right now? And other books are great as well. So thanks for asking that question. And then I'm going to answer another one that's anonymous. Thank you for this one. And it just says, I have severe depression. I've been doing Louise's work, but still going through a really tough time in my life. Do you think I can be a good workshop leader with my own condition? I'd say at this point, probably it's important for you to continue doing some release work. What I would suggest, and I'm putting this in the chat, is that you sign up for a Calendly session, free session with me for a half hour. And let's talk a little bit more about what's going on with you. And this is open to any of you that are on the webinar today, if you'd like to do that. And I've got this in the chat over here. So just go ahead and look at that, and you can, do a session with me. I'm sure Rick would be happy to offer one too. I don't have his Calendly name exactly up there, but if you'd like to put that in the chat, you could go ahead and do that.
Don't have it available right now. I have to go online and get it.
Go online. Okay, we can send that out later to just the people who are on this call. Okay.
Right.
So let me just check and see if there's anything else I specifically want to cover with you right now. If there's any other questions, please do put those in the Q&A as well, and we'll look at those and answer them before. But again, we're going back to some of these questions. How do I feel? Who would I betray? How old do I feel? How old do I feel? Who would I betray? What's happening right now in my life that I can really plan on changing? How do I, and what was I taught I deserve? So it's really important. I'm just going to also give you another example of a couple of my clients. And one of them had won $400,000 in one of the lotteries. This was a while back, but she had won $400,000. And within 3 months, she had lost it all, which absolutely angered her adult kids, as you can imagine. But it actually went back to something that Rick was saying, and that she had also always thought, if I get money, I won't be able to keep it. And that had been an unconscious thought, even though she was so excited when she won the lottery. And you've probably heard a lot of stories like that, that people who win lotteries often lose the money very quickly because they haven't solved and taken care of those unconscious beliefs about how to handle it. And then another client that I worked with, there was actually a fairly small incident when she was a child, but her mother treated her unfairly about something, didn't believe her about something that had gone on, but believed the other person involved with it. And then later found out that her daughter was okay. But that had planted in her mind, I am going to be unfairly treated. So she was finding that in some business experiences she was having and in a work experience she was having. And then when we uncovered that belief that she would be unfairly treated, that began to change everything within her work environment. So you can see that sometimes it doesn't have to be a big thing that happens in your childhood, but there's a belief that's emotionally very strongly settled in there, and that will begin to play out. So if there's any other questions, let me see. It looks like we have a couple of questions. Will you ever offer, oops, let me do that. Will you ever offer the training virtually? And actually, we won't, because it is so in depth emotionally that there's just no way to do it online. And I know there's a lot of great things that are happening online, and certainly, they're wonderful. But what we know from 25 years of experience is that training in person is really vital for you getting deeper with your own understanding and then being able to help others effectively. And we did have to make that decision during COVID. We really meditated on that quite a bit. And what we did do is for the Heal Your Life workshop leaders during that time, we transformed most of the programs that they get to lead afterwards. They could be done in person or virtually. So when you do the training, then you have the option. The one exception is Louise's 2-day workshop, which is why the training actually started. People were so affected by the 2-day workshop Louise had created that was changing their lives over and above the book that they asked for a training program. So that 2-day workshop maintains in person. There's actually one coming up in Atlanta, Georgia in July. So you can also send me an email if you'd like to find out where that is. I'll send out all the information. So we do keep it in person for the training, but I'm telling you, every single person since COVID who's come and experienced it have said at the end, absolutely, this needed to be done in person. So there's never been a question about that. Okay, that. Okay, another question is, how intense is the inner child work? Realizing my value and worth all stem from early childhood fear of overwhelm to change this. Well, in the training itself, we really contain, and in the 2-day workshop that we do, because we don't do anger releasing and we don't do inner child work online in the workshops that have been, adapted. But you can also always set the just parameters for yourself and where you want to go with it. So part of it is your own connection with what you want to do. But if you're in a safe environment like we create in the training, it's really okay to go where you need to go to release things. But people always feel like it is just a release and a relief to let go of some of this and start working on it. And you can start working on it right now, talking to that inner child and saying, instead of just, accepting what has happened in your childhood, but just keep referring to that inner child and talking to her and saying, you are worthwhile. You really are. And I am willing to love you. Okay.
I
And
just posted, excuse me, I just posted my booking calendar in
okay.
the Q&A.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. And Lindsay is asking if we could offer this in a shorter time frame because it's hard to get away from the kids for 10 days. We actually used to do the program separately with a 7-day workshop leader training and then a 6-day coach training. But we got so many requests to combine the two that back in 2018 is when we started the pilot, which we were very happy with. even happier than we expected, quite honestly, that we were able to do some online sessions ahead of time on Zoom with what we can do, and then the 10 days in person, and then afterwards as well. So it's possible that the workshop leader and coach trainings might be offered separately again at some point. Right now, here in the US and Canada and the UK and Ireland, they're all being done in the 10 days. And we do understand that that can be a challenge to get away from the kids. At this point, we don't have next year scheduled, but Lindsay will keep that in mind. And just know that if it's the right thing for you, it'll happen. Okay. Okay. Let's see if there's anyone else. Okay. No more open questions. So I just want to close with saying, thank you for joining us, and we truly hope that you've uncovered and just really had some insights into how to deal with your unconscious beliefs and transform them. I will send out some more affirmations when I send out the follow-up for all of this to all of you who've been joining us, which is great, and thank you so much for that. And just to encourage you that if you are considering the training, first of all, for those of you who are on this webinar, we're offering a $600 discount, which was our early bird discount several months ago. But because you've been kind enough to come on and interested enough, we'll offer you that $600 discount. So you'll get a special email about that tomorrow, actually, and just getting more connected with that offer that we're giving you. And just to know that you are loved. You are worthy of love. Louise's work definitely transforms lives, and quite honestly, it will always be relevant because human beings will always need transformation and insights into body, mind, emotions, and spirit, those four aspects of ourselves. So it's always available that we can go to Louise's work and other modalities as well. We know that you probably use some other things as well, but keep open to your own transformation and know that you are worthy of a wonderful life, that you are worthy of uncovering this old stuff to release it, and that you are loved and lovable. And so it is.
And I would close with reminding you that the world is really quite a wonderful place. There is a lot of fear flying around these days. It's got people confused as to what to do, where to go, what's going to happen next. What about this? What about that? And the answers are all within. And I know you hear that, but at the training, we do everything we can to direct you inwardly to find your answers. Because once you discover the truth, and the truth is not something you see out there on the internet or anywhere, the truth is who you are, and who you are is the truth. And you have the power to heal yourself, body, mind, and spirit. And you have the power to make the world a far better place once you know who you are. And then you can step down from worrying about what's happening next, where will this all go, and so forth, because you will find a certain peace within yourself that lets you know that indeed everything is quite all right. And the people may not think that that can unfold and that that can happen in such a relatively short period of time when you've been trying to do it all your life unsuccessfully. But the power of this in-person workshop will bring something out of you that you never even knew existed. It never fails. And when you think of the cost of the training and consider that all lodging is included in that, many meals are included in it, all your materials and everything you'll need to go out and teach if you want to. Some people just come and take the training because they want to heal themselves. And it is well worth it to come and do that. So we are here for you. You can contact us. We've given you our booking information for free chats that we can work with you beginning even now, with no promise or no guarantee of you doing anything else in the future. We love you, and we're here to help. And I know you hear we're here to help a lot, but we truly are. And I love you all and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have one more question to answer. How long did you work with Louise? And actually, I knew Louise for 30 years, but how I worked with her initially for the training and before the training started was like 8.5 years. And so I went to the first intensive that she ever led, went to the second one, then she asked me to be on staff for the next 5 years. Then she asked me to be teaching her 2-day Love Yourself, Heal Your Life workshop after she was on the Oprah Winfrey Show and got so busy. And then in 1995, the training started. But I knew her for a total of 30 years. So it was quite an amazing relationship all that time. She was an incredible woman. And Rick and I are so grateful to her for, really trusting us to take her work forward. And we hope to meet all of you in the future. I love you also. Take care.
Wow.
Bye bye.